I think really looking at, consolidating your purchases. I see that a lot with our members is you might have a concrete superintendent and a shop person and, somebody in the office all buying similar or could buy from the same store, but they're buying it from three different stores
Okay.
and they're paying three different prices. So really consolidation or, learning who.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Ground, a construction innovation podcast. I'm your host, Dagen Davis, and today our guest is Chris Seger. He is the president of the Contractors National Buyer Alliance, otherwise known as CNBA. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for being here. This is really great.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to cut right to the chase. What is Contractors National Buyer Alliance, or CNBA, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so CNBA, number one, we're 100% member owned. I think that's really important to say. And number two, we combine all of our members' spend together as an aggregate, and we can negotiate better pricing for our members based on the aggregate of everybody's spend. So it's a great group where we're continuing to grow, adding spend, and going out and continuing to add vendors too.
Okay, so what exactly does 100% member owned mean?
Yeah, so it's an LLC partnership. We kind of have two ways to join as a member, as an associate or a shareholder. But if you join as a shareholder, you have one voting share in the company, and you very much a co-op group of small contractors that are banding together.
Okay, and so how does your organization help its contractors, right? That you guys are really assisting, and
Yes.
so where does that come into play?
Yeah, so number one, we're helping them save money on products and materials they're already buying every day. Because we have that buying power, we're able to go at a corporate level to some of these companies and negotiate better pricing for our members. So, yeah, I think number one,
Okay.
saving money for our for the contractors, and then helping them buy better. Maybe better. Sometimes we'll help negotiate better terms, extend the terms out to give our, the independent contractors sometimes, 15-day terms might be hard. So being able to extend those to 30 or 45 days really gives an advantage to the group.
Okay. So then who's your ideal member?
Yeah. So, it's all kind of started in the paving industry. So we initially started with 14 paving companies, and since we've expanded out, because we have, Michelin tire and Goodyear tire, and we have auto parts, and we have, we cover a lot of different areas. Vendor wise, I think of paving, utility, earth moving, grading, companies that have equipments, shops, things like that, would all benefit from the CNBA.
Okay.
And
So
really,
the contractors or the companies are your members. Is that correct? And then
that
you're
is,
just helping them with the buying power?
yeah.
Driving down
So,
price?
yeah, our members are the member companies that are doing the purchasing, and I call vendors is the Michelin, the Napas, the Office Depot, things like that.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And
Yeah,
then, so really the contractors that benefit the most are your members. So you're
absolutely.
wanting people to
Yes,
come in as a membership so that they're then saving money on the vendors that you're working with.
absolutely.
Okay, great. So then how is a CNBA different from a traditional trade association?
Yeah, I think that's going back to the member owned. We're member owned. I think something to kind of note as a shareholder, we have dividends that we get back at the end of the year. So when we negotiate some of these national contracts, we work a rebate in on the back end, which pays the expenses of the CNBA, and then whatever is left over at the end of the year goes back to our members as a dividend. So a normal, or somebody that might be doing this for profit, or a regular association is going to be keeping some of those rebates, where we're giving it back to the members like a co-op.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. To be, a member, you get to save money, and you may make a little bit on the dividends.
Yeah.
So why do smaller contractors often end up paying significantly more for the same exact material and equipment? Is it simply just because of the volume?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. And then another thing that I see pretty often is, a smaller company might not make sense to have somebody in the procurement like category, have that extra salary in the office. So you kind of have, a lot of people buying different places and maybe not price checking. Some people do a really good job of getting a good price locally. And then other members I see that where we have bigger savings. I think a good example would be in the auto parts, there may be 6 or 7, levels of discounts, and they may be considered a walk-in customer, or maybe a level 2 or 3, where we have the buying power. We're a level 4 or 5. So, digging deeper into that because we have the buying power. I think that's kind of something else about our group is that, we give a lot of our members that don't have a procurement person. They may, they can reach out to me for questions. I love visiting offices and helping them, maybe strategize, offer suggestions that other companies or members have used. I'm kind of can be one of their employees that's, they're not paying, but I'm helping them purchase better and smarter. And, a lot of times I hear members talk about like invoices, they have invoices from 30 different places coming in, and every invoice costs a dollar amount to process it. So trying to really streamline that and condense down to maybe from 30 invoices a month to say 10 can really help the back end office too.
Okay. So then I guess that segues into our next segment here. Where do you come from? Where like how did you get to this point, and where did you start?
Yeah, so right out of high school, I went to trade school, UTI. Most people know of or have heard of UTI. I was at Mercedes-Benz for 8 years, went on the diesel side of things, and then started getting more into equipment, and then really saw fleet management and kind of DOT, and really, really enjoyed that area of things and how to not necessarily just working on them, but how do you maintain them and what's the proper way to kind of do that. So, which led me into fleet management, DOT stuff, and kind of purchasing. And so I was working at PaveCon out of Texas, and they were a part of a best practice group that this all got started out of in 2020. And I just saw, I saw the potential and I saw the savings, and how cool is this and how cool is this going to be? And just, I was at PaveCon, ended up hiring my replacement there and slowly, transitioning into this role. So, I've been in a lot of the shops. I've been in a lot of the construction environment. I grew up in construction. So, so that's just kind of my journey leading up to this. And, every day I love the CNBA, and I see the savings when I do, the price comparisons and things like that. It's so obvious that we have something here.
Okay. So let's talk about the savings. What types of savings? I know there's a lot of different equipment. There's a lot of different things that you can purchase, but on average, what could your members expect of on their savings?
Yeah, I think a good average is 5 to 6% upfront across the board. Obviously, like you said, there's some categories where we can probably save 15 or 20%, and then other categories there may only be 2 or 3%. So 5's really conservative, but I think that's a pretty good just an upfront number that you would save that we know it's going to happen.
Okay, and then for your maybe some non-members that are now thinking about becoming a member, being the audience of the show here, what could they do now, or what are some tips for just purchasing better?
I think really looking at consolidating your purchases. I see that a lot with our members. Is you might have a concrete superintendent and a shop person and somebody in the office all buying similar, or could buy from the same the same store, but they're buying it from 3 different stores, and they're paying 3 different prices. So really consolidation, or learning who all are your buyers in your company. Like you may have two, or you could have, five or six. Once you start considering these other people that are in the field or foreman or, shop. So I think that's the biggest thing that I see is just not like paying different prices for similar items or the same item with different people buying.
Okay, great. And then, so what are, I guess, how many people do you have on your team internally?
I am the only employee of the CNBA, so I
Okay.
manage all of all the day to day stuff. We do have somebody that helps with our website marketing and things like that, but I am the truly only employee.
Oh, great, great. Okay. So you are the negotiating power.
I am, yes.
Awesome, awesome. So when you're going into these negotiations, how are you preparing for them?
Yeah, so really trying to figure out generally, I'll either see a gap where where we could put a vendor in, or the vendor is coming from a recommendation from one of our members because they use them and could benefit other members. So um, seeing what our full spend is. So reaching out, sending a little survey out to our members, and let's just use an auto parts. How much you spend at X, and trying to gather that information. So I have that when I go into the negotiation. We have the potential to spend this X amount with you, and we have 3 members already using you, but we have a potential of 28 members using you. So trying to just gather as much information as I can about our purchasing history and our power and things like that, and then also listening to the vendors, because the vendors sometimes they want to hear certain things, or they want to make sure that our members are actually going to use them, or that they'll be beneficial to kind of go through this process.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Just leveraging what you have with the 100% member owned and everyone kind of working together.
Yeah.
So why is it so important, the factor of being 100% member owned?
I think that's just, if you would like to be on the monthly board calls, you can be on the board call. You can help drive the CNBA. You do have a voice. You can call me anytime, and I can help strategize with you on, your purchasing, or, I mean, even if it's, you have a question that you want to reach out to another member, maybe, how you're doing a certain process or something like that. So we're very much a pretty tight community. We have an annual meeting every year. And it's really cool. We're now on, I guess, really the 4th year of our annual meeting, and just people are getting to know people more, and, we're bringing on new members, and it's a really cool environment. We've started to do some stuff at trade shows as well, do dinners at trade shows. A lot of our members have people at different trade shows. So getting people together there, and then, just having people be able to talk and communicate and really, learn from each other.
Okay. Is there an initial investment for any new members?
So we do have an annual dues that is both for our associate and our shareholder, and then we do have a one-time buy-in for the shareholder.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So yeah, I really like the model. I think it makes sense. Coming from construction, to be able to drive that volume for your members is really, really cool. To see in general. And so what we're going to do is, we're about halfway through. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back.
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadline stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost, so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.
All right, and we're back to our episode of Breaking Ground with Chris Seger. He is the president of Contractors National Buyer Alliance, otherwise known as the CNBA. And so, Chris, one What I really want to know is what happens when you have a little bit of growth, right? A little bit of growth, a lot more buying power, and one of these negotiating deals are up for renewal.
That's a great question. So, um, I recently did one where we spent an average, at the beginning of the agreement, it was $500,000 a year, and we've now surpassed $1 million a year. So being able to renegotiate better pricing, just again because of our buying power. So as some of these agreements are coming due and re-signing them, we're able to, talk about it a little bit earlier, but whether we add terms. Another one that we've done recently is some credit card fees, and everybody knows people are starting to charge some credit card fees at the terminal. So either negotiating those lower or completely off. So really, again, we've built this relationship. The vendors seeing the growth, and we're continuing to grow. We've added spend on their books, and so we really do have a lot of power on our side to renegotiate multiple things.
Okay. And so, a lot of people when they join a buying group like this, they think about, the discounts. That's very valuable, but the value, I would assume, goes much, much deeper than that. Could you speak to what other benefits these members get?
Yeah. So not only I think the lower pricing, but I think of, we have DeWalt in our program, and we have extended warranties on the tools and batteries. With Whitecap, with national accounts, we have access to heat stress training, some OSHA training, some kind of just stuff that's just for national accounts. So I think, you kind of have that side of things. And then, I've talked about it a little bit on here, but we, visiting different member offices and really being able, I'm one phone call away all the time. My phone's always on. If they have questions, anything like that, I am there. If there's any new member that comes on, I try to spend at least a week in their office, just to get to know them, what they're purchasing. Maybe they have a new vendor that I haven't thought of, or is not, not in our program, and they can help connect the dots so we can bring the vendor on. So, I think, you're part of this group, and that, if you want to take advantage of it, I think that there's a lot to be able to bring in and bring to the table for these members.
Okay. So I know you guys have a lot of relationships with vendors. Are you guys working with any manufacturers in construction? That we can talk about paving. Are you guys working with any paving manufacturers?
No. I have been in the talks and trying to work through some stuff, and just trying to bring them on. So we do. Cementex is the one manufacturer we have, the volumetric mixer trucks. We have multiple members with those, and they came on. They've been a vendor of ours for 4 years now. They've been a really great partner, and again, they have direct access to Cementex and to ask them questions and all that stuff. So I think materials, the aggregate, and equipment are two categories that I've really been trying to break through to bring that to our members.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I've worked for some dealers and some manufacturers in the past, so maybe we can connect our brains after the show here and see if something can work. But other than that, I mean, I know you guys are working on expanding into other, not just paving, into some other areas in construction. And so how do you see this working? Do you think it would go just as smooth? Would there be, some tough areas to really cover?
Yeah, so I'm actually working with a trucking company right now. And obviously they spend a ton on tires. So we work through a price comparison on tires, and then and doing auto parts and heavy duty truck and trailer parts and all that stuff. And it's pretty seamless. I mean, they're spending with our members. They're spending with our vendors, and other ones that they are right around the corner, but they just haven't used, but they would benefit from the savings. So pretty seamless. And I think that's kind of something to bring up too, the onboarding process. A lot of it happens in the background, so it's not very intensive for the member to join, because I'm handling that. If they're already using, 3 or 4 of our preferred vendors, if I get an invoice, I can handle that on the back end with our national account manager. So it really is it's a pretty seamless, easy process for the member to join.
Okay. And so that's for the members. What about the vendors? How is the onboarding process for that?
Yeah. So, once we work through an agreement and get that all signed, I'll send out a big email to everybody announcing the new vendor coming on board. We'll put them in the monthly newsletter. And our members are really good about reaching out. But if we have members that don't, or maybe they're unsure, I help make introductions with our vendors to our members, and try to connect the dots and help them in that process.
And then for your members, do you guys have a master list or a resource that people, the members can actually go to figure out if there is a vendor in the area that, with what they're buying? Or is it simply they're just calling you and you're connecting them with that opportunity?
Yeah, I think most of our vendors are pretty, it's they know where the white caps, and they've kind of heard of all those places. But absolutely, most of our members would just reach out to me. Or in the monthly newsletter, we do have our contact information for our national rep that kind of oversees the program, so they can call them directly as well. But I would say, yeah, mostly with me, and then I help coordinate with, who their local rep is, and kind of make those introductions for them.
Okay, great. And then, so many contractors are just exceptional builders, and very, very good at their trade, or, whatever they're doing specifically in construction. And so that it seems like, there's a problem here, or at least it's not, the full attention is not going to procurement or a procurement strategy. And so why do you think that is? And I know you already partly answered this with, they didn't want someone full-time looking at that. But why are they not looking at that specifically?
I think, I see in the smaller companies, the owners, or, the general managers, they're just really busy. And I think, they're they have a sales team, or they're out selling, and they got jobs to do, and they're making it happen. Especially the people, in the North or the Northeast, where they're working shorter seasons. It's really crunch time, and it's, it's make it happen. And I think that's the real reason. And they're not big enough to hire that person in procurement. Or, it doesn't, or maybe they haven't thought about it. But I think that's where the CNBA can really help that contractor out, is, we can be that person and really help them. So they can stay focused on, it's the sales, or they get, operations, or whatever they're focused on.
Yeah. So by becoming a member with you guys, it kind of opens them up to be able to do what they do best, right? And focus on their trade, focus on their company. And then you guys kind of can swoop in and really help out with the strategies there.
Yes, absolutely.
That's great. So how do you see, let's talk about some innovation here. So how are you guys innovating on being able to communicate with your members, and being able to really just get better volume pricing, like you talked about with vendors? Is there some type of technology you guys are using, or how are you innovating on these different strategies?
Yeah, I think, we're really just looking at, so I guess, we don't have technology behind it. It's more, we're looking at what our members are, spending and buying, and, working that side of things. I think that we've been working on a couple things in the background for communication with members, and, potential app and things like that. We have our website, and, we want to do a member portal there. So communication that way. Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting, we're working with a new potential vendor right now, and they're kind of in the AI space, and they have open AIs to a bunch of the rental house companies, and the idea is that they're going to track your rentals, and at the end of the year, you can get your average cost for the rental. You can see how many hours the machine ran, how many times you rented it, so things like that. So I'm kind of going out after the technology companies and trying to bring them to the table, and seeing if our members are interested. Would this help them, kind of a thing. So we already have a few planning, scheduling software platforms. I've been working with some GPS companies, so trying to bring that to the table for our members has been a big focus.
Okay, great. And then how are you guys being? I mean, right? You have to be careful about AI and how it's going to be coming into these companies. I know, maybe a lot of these contractors are just not used to using technology in this way. And so, how are you guys going in and just vetting these companies before you even present them? To these companies where if they really do bring something in and it makes a lot of changes, it could really, mess with the structure of the business.
Yeah. So, I kind of have my my pulse, or my hand to the pulse out there, and kind of know what companies are really into technology. And I will occasionally ask a member to join a call with a vendor, or see if they'll do a demo, because they're really the ones at the end of the day, right? They're using it, or they would use it. So if I get a good feeling and I kind of understand, I'll bring somebody else in, a member in, and kind of help vet it to make sure that it would make sense on the member side of things before pushing it out. So, and
Okay.
I've even brought in a couple members before, just because I thought it was really cool, and I really wanted to get different opinions on it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's another benefit, right? If you're presenting something to the entire member base, then it was most likely going through a lot of these different vetting processes and feedback processes, right? So they know that it's going to be something that could really help them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the easy ones like Sherman-Williams or PPG, it's like, there's line stripers are going to use the paint. But yeah, some of the technology ones, this one that I was talking to you about that, that APIs into a bunch of rental houses. I brought in two members on that one just to see. And one member said, I love the idea, but we're not big enough for it. And the other member was like, I think I want to use this. So it was a great, to be able to vet it and say, yeah, they should definitely be a part of the group.
Yeah, that sounds great to really know your numbers and your statistics on rentals that are going out, especially on an annual basis. You kind of see your return on it.
Yeah, being able to group from multiple different rental houses, and can put that on one platform, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. So what is there anything else that excites you about the future of independent contractors and the way
Man,
things are rolling?
yeah, I mean, I think with the AI piece, I just see the trades continuing to thrive really well. And I grew up in construction, and I started my career turning wrenches, and I love construction. I love working with my hands. I think a lot of people have that passion, and I think it's such a cool industry. And my early days, a car comes in broken, and it's fixed when it leaves. And in construction, you have potholes, or if you're doing asphalt, potholes and cracks and all that stuff, and you have a nice finished service. So I think it's really cool. You get to see the results in real time right there.
Yeah, that is cool. And so where I guess really the last question here would be if there's people that are watching right now that are somewhat interested or just want to learn a little bit more info about your organization, where can they go and how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can hop on our website. It's going to be cnba.us. And that'll have our members listed on there. It'll have our vendors. I think most importantly, vendors, because then you can kind of go through the list and look and see if you recognize any of them, and if you're spending with them, and maybe at that point it would make sense. So yeah, I mean, there's a contact us button on the website, and then or chris.seger@cnba.us. You can shoot me an email. And I can send you, some flyers and some more information.
Okay, great. And one thing we'll do to make it really easy for anyone watching the video here is right below the video here on YouTube, we will have in the description your actual website. So that way, if you're interested, you want to visit the website. I know it's a really easy website. Usually, it's a lot harder than that. But we will add that to the description there so that people can just click on that and go right to the website and learn a little bit more and get in contact with you. But Chris, other than that, we're going to start to wrap up the episode here. And what I like to do at the end of every show is give my guest a chance to really take the floor without me asking a question, and just let them talk about whatever they feel they would like to promote or market, or talk about an event, a trade show, or really anything that you would like to extend to our audience. Now would be the time.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. And I think again, just if you're interested in in the CNBA and saving money, CNBA.us, and then I guess I had a question for you: is how many shows have you done now?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I think we're on number 13.
Excellent.
12. I think 12 have been released for this show. I do a lot of different shows for other companies and stuff. So for this show specifically, there's been I think 12 that have been posted. We're working on the 13th now.
That's great. Congratulations on that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, Chris, really appreciate you coming on. You coming on the show really helps this continue, so we can get that 13th, 14th, 15th episode. So I really appreciate that. And so other than that, we will see you guys on the next one. That was another episode of Breaking Ground. Thanks for stopping by.
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadline stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost, so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.